morning where you're at. I guess in St. Louis it is noon. So good afternoon, everybody. Very glad to be here today. And Ashley, thank you for the invitation to talk a little bit and share a little bit about our organization, St. Louis Life. So St. Louis Life, just to get started, and I want to be cognizant of time and leave plenty of time at the end for questions. St. Louis Life is a structured living program, independent living program based in St. Louis. This is a picture of our property, of our campus. The building you see on the left in the picture represents the residential building where we have 16 apartments. Each resident has their own apartment, and the building on the right-hand side is what we call our commons building, where you find where all of our group activities are provided. The St. Louis Life model is really a hybrid model between a traditional independent living, where individuals are living by themselves in the community. We have elements of that. We also have elements of a group home. I don't like that term, but we do have elements of that as well, with 16 residents being under one roof, and we offer a great deal of programming for those 16 individuals, which I'll talk about. Let's go to the next slide, please. As Ashley said, we are a community-based program. We are based out in the community. Our residents are engaged in the community. We are a residential program, so our residents live on campus in their own apartments. We provide a variety of supports, which I'll talk a little bit more in detail here in the presentation. That includes job placement, a lot of social, educational, and recreational programming, and a wide variety of other supports. Our purpose, our mission is to create a community where individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities can live as independent of a life as possible. All right, let's go to the next slide. We were established in 2005. We are a nonprofit organization with 501c3 status, which is an important thing regarding fundraising. We were founded by a parent, Rob Trulast, a parent of a young son with Down syndrome, who was our first resident. And Rob really set out to build and create St. Louis Life for Chris and Chris's peers. We used a couple of local organizations with the architectural work of our campus, the Lawrence Group, and then the parent company was our general contractor. We broke ground in 2006. Completion of construction was in 2007. We opened our doors in the summer of 2007. So we're just about ready to knock on our 18th year anniversary. Let's go to the next slide. I mentioned that each resident this is a picture of that individual resident apartment. It is a private bath, private bedroom. So we're like an apartment about 650 square feet, an apartment like you'd find anywhere else in the community, full kitchen. Again, I mentioned private bathroom, bedroom, living space, really a nice space. And our residents, we found, really like their own space. They can decorate it, they can paint it, furnish it however they would like to. And it provides a really important sort of individual space for the residents that they find super important. All right, the next slide goes into sort of give you a sense of who we serve. The entrance age, sort of the window in which an applicant could be considered at St. Louis, starts at age 19 through age 35. We are a long-term placement, so we don't ask you to leave at age 35, but we felt like that was an appropriate sort of window, the best ideal window for a resident to join entering into an independent living community. We are a long-term placement, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, where, again, we don't ask residents to leave at age 35, but that's sort of the window in which they would join us. They have to have, an IDD, an intellectual developmental disability, and then last year we established what we call minimum requirements, which is the next slide I want to talk about. 11 specific things that we expect or ask all of our residents to meet. That really helps sort of define what our community is about. I mentioned the programming that we do, so we ask each resident to participate in at least 10 of those activities per month, either offered by my staff or by one of our community partners. There's some issues around maintaining your apartment, participating in kitchen chores. Number 4, this is a key aspect of our program. All of our residents are working or volunteering out in the community. as part of the community integration model that we have. And those 15 hours can include paid employment, volunteer work, day programming, taking classes at the community college, job training. It doesn't matter to us, but it's important that everyone is engaged in something out in the community. It's important for them, but it's also important for all the people that they interact with out in the community. Addressing number 5, their ADLs, attending a weekly house meeting. We do provide medication support to our residents. It's important that they follow those requirements as defined by their physician. We provide some support to those that need it around medication distribution. Safety is an important part. Kindness and respect are a big part of what we do. Maintaining your physical and mental health. We promote health and wellness strategies all the time within our community. And then lastly, we've established a code of conduct when out in the community, both at your workplace or your volunteer site, but also when we're out in the community, participating in baseball games, hockey games, plays, all those sort of opportunities that St. Louis has to offer. So the next slide talks a little bit about who we don't serve. We are not equipped to serve individuals that have significant either psychiatric or serious emotional needs, as well as significant medical conditions that require sort of weekly or regular daily intervention. And we don't provide one-on-one 24-hour, 24/7 supervision. So it's really important that we early on established who we are and who we serve. So as you think about some of our key features, as I mentioned earlier, we serve 16 residents. We're a co-ed facility, both men and women. Right now, I just did the math on this. Our average age among our residents starts at 25 and goes all the way through 60, I think 62. Our average age is around 40. We give you a sense of how long a resident stays with us. The current tenure for our residents is 12 years. We have some that have been here for 18, and we just did admission for 2 new residents last year. So a pretty good mix of levels of tenure. Each resident has their own apartment, their own with a private bath. I talked about that in bedroom. We really try to strive for a balance of support and independence, helping each individual resident sort of find what that is. We have staff on site 24/7, including overnight or wake staff. Our staffing ratios to residents is about 1 staff to 5 residents, again, to give you a sense of sort of the level of independence that we aspire within our resident community. Our physical location is in this sort of suburban ring of St. Louis, the western side. We are nestled in a neighborhood, intentionally lots of trails and sidewalks and nearby things that our residents can walk to. And we've had a nice, not so much initially, but we've developed a really nice partnership with a lot of the local residents as well as local businesses. So give you a little sense about sort of philosophically about how we approach the work that we do in supporting our residents. I mentioned some of these things already where we emphasize these are some of our core concepts and core values. We focus on independence with support. We recognize that all of our residents need some support in some life area, but we are constantly trying to build their capacity to be independent. We offer lots of choices, but our program is also very structured. We've found that our community of residents, and I think this is true for the IDD community as a whole, they tend to do better. They tend to thrive when they know what to expect. And so we have a structured sort of approach to our program. We help residents create their own weekly schedules that build into all those pieces that I talked about, the work, the volunteering, the activities, the health and wellness strategies, all those sort of things. We're working both on the physical activity side, but also on the nutrition side, promoting healthy lifestyle. I know many of you are aware that this population is high risk for a number of health challenges. And this is something that we are constantly promoting within our community. I mentioned earlier, we try to take as best that we can an individualized support while also having some standards. And we try to sort of wrap around those individualized services around each of our residents. Families are welcome and encouraged to be engaged in our program. We don't just have visiting hours, they're welcome anytime. About half our families are from the St. Louis area, about half are from out of town. places like Houston, Texas, California, Florida, Connecticut, Wisconsin, and Maryland. So we draw families from all over the country. We provide a number of opportunities for and support the importance of work and volunteer work, but also that social piece. We found our community really wants to socialize and connect with their peers, but don't always know how to do that. So I have a team of staff who are dedicated to creating those opportunities for them to have fun, to socialize, but also to learn some stuff. Then lastly, and I hope this has become evident as I've shared some of our details, we very much believe in a community integration model. So our residents are out in the community working, volunteering, they're shopping, they're accessing all the wonderful things that St. Louis has to offer. And we think that is really, really important. So some of the sort of big chunks of what we offer, sort of our menu of services, I mentioned the employment and volunteering. We work with each resident in identifying their strengths, developing a resume, doing job searching. We do job coaching and job placement. We often work in collaboration with our vocational rehabilitation, VR services here in Missouri. They tend to move very, very slow, which makes us a little crazy. And we often move forward sort of with them, but also we don't like to sit around and wait for them to engage. So we've had a lot of luck placing and finding opportunities for our residents within our own staff community. I mentioned the social recreational. We put together a monthly calendar of events that residents can sign up for. We ask them to sign up for at least 10 every month. Usually we have that usually is not a problem. We do a lot of fun and engaging activities on campus, movie nights, board game nights, dances, karaoke, but we also do a great deal of opportunities out in the community, often in conjunction with other organizations that serve this community, the same population. We have a number of what we call community partners that do an amazing array of recreation and educational programs. And it gives our resident community an opportunity to link up with hundreds of other individuals in the St. Louis area who are part of the IDD community. And we think that's super important. Health and wellness, I mentioned earlier, we promote that on a daily basis with our residents, encouraging them to engage in regular physical exercise. We have on our campus an exercise room with treadmills and exercise bikes that and a number of other pieces of equipment that is available here on our campus. And we also have a couple of part-time personal trainers that are available if residents would like to access that. Equally on the food side, on the nutrition side, St. Louis Life provides 2 meals every day, breakfast and dinner. And the lunch meal residents are on their own, independent on their own. But on the meals that St. Louis provides, we really try to stick to a low-fat, high-protein menu or diet. We do have pizza, we do have chicken fingers, we do have cheeseburgers every so often, but we really try to integrate vegetables and salad and fruit into every meal, also offering an alternative meal if the one that we're providing is not of the resident's liking. We assist residents with life skills. My direct care staff, my DSP, direct support professionals, do a lot of one-on-one work with each resident in their apartments, helping address things like laundry and paying bills and cleaning their apartment, all those sort of day-to-day tasks that they might need some assistance with, some prompts with. A number of our residents are active in their faith community, and we help them identify the options in our community, and we're really pleased at the support many of them have found in another community in which they're engaged in. And then lastly, safety and security is very important. We are in a suburban area that is very, very safe, very low crime. That's important to a lot of our families. We've engaged some measures on our campus. We've got about 3.5 acres here on our campus that with lighting, with exterior doors being locked, that really encourage and provide that assurance around safety and security. All right, I don't know if you can see this very well, but one of the things we did last year, I think one of the things we've learned has been really successful, is a reorganization of our staff into 5 teams. That has been a really fantastic shift in how we've gone about our business. And you can see there are 5 teams here. Each of those teams is led by a manager or a team leader. So about a year ago, we implemented this model, and the teams were sort of organized by function, and we promoted 4 people up into that team leader position. We offered them higher compensation, more responsibilities, and that's been really a very strategic thing that we have been very pleased with the results. So on the left side, you can see the operations team. That's the team that I lead. That includes sort of all the behind the scenes people. Our kitchen manager, we have a part-time IT person, as well as administrative assistant. The second team is our overnight team. And it consists of 1 full-time and 4 part-time people. They provide overnight support starting at 11 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. and they're awake. They handle emergencies, they do some light housekeeping, and they keep the building safe and sound. Thirdly is our transportation team. We are in a part of St. Louis that does not have public transportation available. So we provide that door to door for all of our residents, door to door to their employment, to the grocery store, to the doctor's office, all the support needs that they have around transportation, we provide that. We have 2 staff that do provide the primary supports around transportation, and St. Louis Life owns 4 vehicles, 2 of which we have in partnership with our Department of Transportation. I'm happy to talk about that if someone would like to learn more about that. Every state has funds available for transportation for people with disabilities, and we've been able to tap into that for many years. So the other 2 teams that we have, I mentioned our activities team or our A team. These are 4 full-time people that are responsible for putting together that monthly calendar of the fun stuff, the educational stuff. They do not have a caseload themselves. They are responsible for, again, planning, designing, implementing those on-campus and off-campus activities. I think if you ask any of our residents why they like living at St. Louis Life, a top 3 answer is going to be the stuff that we do, the activities that we do. We think it adds significant value. It's a value-added thing that we offer our residents. Then the last team that we have is our program. We call our DSPs. We're called program coaches. These are the folks that are working directly with residents. They have a caseload between 2 and 4 residents. They are the primary staff members that communicate with the families. They help set goals. They run the ISP process, the individualized service plan with each resident. They communicate with families. They know the medications. They manage the doctor's office visits. They manage the grocery store. All of the supports a resident might need is coordinated by their assigned program coach. They are, again, that's what we call our DSPs. We like the word coach. We think it represents sort of the role that our coaches play. They don't do for, they do with. They teach, they train, they promote, they encourage. They nudge a little bit when someone might be struggling. So that is our model that we moved to about a year ago. Really happy with how that restructuring offered an opportunities for advancement by promoting 4 people. And also this team approach has been, again, really helpful in the day-to-day operations of St. Louis Life. Ashley asked me to talk a little bit about the fiscal operations of St. Louis Life, give you a little bit of a profile. I mentioned we are a nonprofit organization. Our annual budget every year this past year runs at $1.55 million, which includes depreciation. We do not have any debt, which is amazing. The biggest part of our staffing cost, of our overall cost, have to do, surprise, at staffing. About 62% of our budget is related to staffing, both salaries and benefits. Our annual fee is just shy of about $60,000, or about $5,000 per month. That doesn't cover the cost for our services. Costs per resident are almost a little over $89,000, so it covers about 2/3 of the cost. So we have to do some fundraising to help fill that gap every year. our program fees from a revenue standpoint cover about 71%. We have operating support from a couple of foundations. We do some fundraising, not a lot. We don't have a development person or a development department, but we do some fundraising efforts throughout the year. And that government grant is the Department of Transportation funds that we have that provides some operating dollars as well as vehicle replacement dollars. And we also generate a little money from our investments. We are a private pay organization. We decided early on, for better or for worse, to not accept public monies for our services. That's a strong feeling from our founder and our board. And so we rely upon program fees and our ability to raise funds to fill in that gap. So thinking about what we've learned in the last 18 years, and it's been a lot, Ashley asked me to talk about some things that we feel are success factors, things that have played a role in our success. And you'll see a list of 7 or 8 items here. One of the things that we're super proud of is our high staff retention rates. One of the biggest, as many of you know, one of the crises facing this field right now is staffing, right? Finding and securing people that are willing to do this hard but important and incredibly meaningful work. And we've been really lucky and not just lucky, very intentional about our efforts to retain staff. I looked at our numbers for last year, from 24 to 25, 2024 to 25, we retained 85% of our staff, which is, I think, really, really good. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that I think impact that. Some of it has to do with our culture. Some of it has to do with the community that we have here, both of other staff and our resident community. But we've been lucky to find some really good folks. And one of the ways we find good people, a couple bullets down here, is we have a very vibrant student internship program where we are a host site for local universities and colleges where we serve as a practicum or an internship site for those students. Our primary link has been through the social work schools, but we've also drawn folks from occupational therapy, human development and family studies, special education. Currently, we have 3 students right now from 2 different universities, and they are hands-on with some training and orientation. They are hands-on providing supports to our residents. It's a great way to bring in new energy and new ideas, and it's also a great way to find future staff. So many of the staff that we have in place right now maybe started out with us as an intern, joined us as a part-time staff, and were promoted to full-time. So it's a really great sort of source of staff, future staff. And it's again a great way. It's a great way to have some new energy, some new ideas, some new enthusiasm on your staff team. They require supervision. There's some cost involved. We currently do not pay our interns. That's a policy that we set a long time ago. But it's a great way to identify new staff. Individualized supports, we think, is a really key here. We try to be as flexible and as specific to an individual's needs while maintaining some basic parameters, some basic guidelines. But we really try to, again, wrap around supports to each of our residents in conjunction with their families to provide those support on a sort of individualized basis. It gets harder as you get larger, but it's still super important. I've mentioned in my presentation a number of times the importance of community partners. We have probably 25 at least organizations. There are the places that our residents work and volunteer. They are places that support us as financially with donations and support of our fundraising events. But there's a large number of them that are who have a mission that's compatible with ours. So St. Louis has a phenomenal Down Syndrome Association. They're one of our biggest partners. We've got a number of other typical nonprofit organizations that provide services to the same community that we serve. And so a lot of them are open to serving more than just the folks that within their sort of immediate sphere of service. So we have we could not replicate all of the programming that our residents have access to through these various community partners. They really have, and it's part of our value base here, that collaborative sort of spirit, is that we are careful in selecting those, and we want to make sure that the way that they provide services matches our philosophy. But again, I can't reiterate how important those organizations are in providing sort of value-added supports to our residents. I've talked about our restructuring into teams already. We've had very stable leadership. I've been with St. Louis Life for over 20 years, the only director that we've had, knock on wood. That has, I think, provided a lot of stability. And I didn't do the math, but many of our staff here have been here for 8 to 10 to 12 years. So that sort of long-term stability has, I think, made a huge difference in our organization. We work closely with families. We work sort of in a triangular relationship between the resident, us, and the families. That can be a wonderful thing. It can be a challenging thing, as many of you know. About half of our residents are their own guardians. The other half, the family serves in that role. And so that creates some challenges for my direct care, for my program coaches, that when we think something's important for a resident and we want to advocate with mom and dad about that, and maybe mom and dad doesn't see the situation the same way. So I want to go back to the importance of hiring the right people. My program coaches and my activity coaches, we have minimum requirements for them. They have to have a bachelor's degree and 2 years of experience. Because not only do they have to be able to work with our residents, they also have to be able to communicate effectively with our families. And that takes some experience, it takes some confidence, it's a different skill set. So that partnership is essential to our success and our residents' success, but it only happens because my staff have the skills to navigate that. The last item on my list here of success items has to do with an in-house behavior therapist. We've noticed as our residents are aging that we are seeing an increase in what I would describe as problematic behaviors that we had maybe not seen when they first joined us. And so we have been working with outside behavior therapists and developing behavior plans for some of our residents when necessary. About 3 years ago, I hired our own in-house behavior therapist who was working on and has since completed her ABA credentials, the Applied Behavioral Analysis. This is a form of behavior therapy that we think very highly of and is sort of integrated into our program supports. So it's wonderful to have somebody in-house, a full-time person who does have a caseload, but also provides support to our other staff as we implement more and more behavior plans to help address some of those behaviors. Again, I can't tell you how awesome that is to have someone in-house to be able to do that. Some of the challenges that we've faced and continue to face, again, I know some of the folks around on the call today or on the Zoom meeting today, these certainly won't be a surprise. We have been in operation, as I said, for 18 years. And so the last 2 years, especially, we've really been challenged by our community aging and seeing sort of very direct ramifications of that aging process. And in fact, last calendar year, we had 3 residents leave us because of their aging needs and their support needs exceeding what we can provide. And these were 3 long-term residents that have been with us. 2 of them have been with us for 17 years. So, but we had reached a point after much effort, much modification, additional staffing supports, we were just no longer able to serve them effectively. They weren't able to meet those minimum requirements that I described earlier. And so and honestly, those minimum requirements came out of the challenges over the last 2 to 3 years of this aging process. All 3 of those residents had Down syndrome and early signs of Alzheimer's. So we know that was coming. It wasn't a surprise. It happened pretty quickly, the decline, but that continues to be something that I think presents challenges for a residential program like St. Louis Life that is a long-term placement. We've learned a lot in the last 3 years and feel in a much better place to support our residents as we move forward. I mentioned that finding staff, and it's not just finding staff. Those of you who are in the hiring role, there are some amazing people that are out there willing to work in this field. Finding them and securing them to start on a day, the first of the month or whatever, that is a challenge. The hiring process has completely changed since COVID. And so you have to be very quick. You have to be really on top of your applicant pool. They're out there. We've had some luck, but it's a challenge to find and lock them down. One of the staff that I think is that we're always really nervous about losing is our overnight staff. It's a one-person show starting 11 p.m. So if they can't come in, there's not somebody else right there next to them to fill in. And so we rely heavily upon that team. It's a tough job. They're awake. We're very fortunate to have a pretty stable team right now, but it's something that we're always monitoring and making sure that we're taking care and supporting that overnight team. Definitely one of our unsung hero groups on our staff. Overtime costs. I hope most of you are aware. We went through a very challenging Department of Labor audit, I guess it was, investigation a year or so ago. All of our staff are eligible for overtime under the new standards. And that was not how we started when we opened 18 years ago. And so we had a shift to honoring and supporting, obviously following those labor laws, but that's added a huge cost to our budget. And it's also been a challenge for our staff who were not used to counting every minute, who were used to working 45, 50 hours at their leisure. That's no longer possible. So we've had to be really more cognizant about that time, that overtime cost, and the cost related to that. And then lastly, we have a substitute list or a PRN list. These are folks that are not regularly scheduled, but fill in when we have people on vacation, when we have people out sick, at conferences, that sort of thing. We've got, I think, about 8 people on that list. And so maintaining and managing that, because we want to make sure that they are working a little bit so they stay in tune with our organization's needs and our resident needs, but keeping that list fresh, but not overworking them at the same time is something that is a challenge. All right, Ashley asked me to include a little profile. These are 3 of our residents, Susie, Molly, and Paul. These are actual real residents that live at St. Louis Life. Susie, and just to give you a little profile and some recent success stories. Susie is one of our longest standing residents. She had a job when she came to us. When COVID hit, she decided she wanted a new direction in life, so she quit that job, and we helped her find a new job that she loves at Michael. She loves craft stuff, and so she's very excited about that new opportunity. Really try to take the chance and the time during COVID to sort of reconfigure what her interests were, and we helped her identify her interests, her strengths, what kind of settings she wanted to work on, helped her with her resume, helped her with interviewing, and provided some job coaching support to her. So she is super happy at her position at Michael's. Molly is another long-term resident that struggles with very severe OCD and anxiety, and she has what's called a DBS device in her brain, a direct brain stimulating device that keeps the anxiety and the OCD thoughts and behaviors at bay. That device was not working properly, so last year she had a new device put in that had a monumental change in her quality of life. She'd been with us for, I think, almost 10 years. And we do an annual trip every year with the residents out of town. She has never been able to go on that trip because of her OCD and her anxiety. Last October, she was able to go on that trip. Last year was to New Orleans, and she had a great time and did fantastic. And she would, last January, she had that surgery, and she was in a really, really bad place. And the surgery and the therapy afterward really helped drastically change her quality of life. And again, we provided supports in conjunction with mom's dad, doctors, all that sort of thing, and helping support her before, during, and after that surgery. And then lastly, Paul has a pretty serious seizure disorder. In the last 6 to 9 months, he has had a real spike in that seizure activity. If you've ever worked with people like that, sometimes it's really hard to pinpoint what's causing that increased seizure activity. With the doctor's support, family support, our staff involvement, we were able to help Paul manage that, change some meds, do some additional therapy, and he was able to, because of that, he was able to attend his sister's wedding in November and actually gave a speech as her man of honor. So he's got a T-shirt, maybe he has it on the picture that says man of honor. It was awesome. Yeah, brought tears to everybody's eyes from what I heard at the wedding. So again, all these residents have strengths. They're all here for a reason. They need some supports. I just want to give you a little profile of 3 of our residents that with our support and in the context of St. Louis Life's community, we're able to address some challenges, some really big ones. And with our support and their determination, really found themselves in a better place. I think the last piece that I want to talk about, two last pieces before we get into some questions. I want to be careful with time. So we get asked a lot about expansion. We actually have space on our campus to add more apartments, to be able to serve more people. My board has been really hesitant with the cost of that endeavor. But we have set up a new committee. We call it the Sustainability and Innovation Committee that was just established this month. They begin meeting next month. We brought an outside consultant to help. It'll be about a year-long process to look at ways that St. Louis Life can expand, but also increase our revenue. We want to eliminate that gap between what residents pay and what it actually costs. We want to do that strategically and intentionally, maintaining our quality of service. And so that committee's been charged with coming up with short-term and long-term recommendations to expand our program, but also to expand the revenue streams that go along with that. The last piece, then we'll open to questions, is the last thing that Ashley asked me to include. I know some of you on the call today are with programs or with groups that are looking at starting a program on your own. We've had probably hundreds of groups of people that have come to St. Louis Life, and we're very happy and very supportive of those groups of people that want to serve the same community. That the need is immense. We with a small program like ours, we're only touching the tip of the iceberg, and so we very much feel as part of our mission to support organizations and efforts to create communities like ours or similar to ours around the country. And we've helped start a couple of other programs, other sites. We've helped very instrumental a program in Phoenix and also a program up in the Chicago area suburbs, Weston Bridges, that opened a couple of years ago. So we're happy to share anything that we have about what we do. We have learned from so many other people and so many other programs that we definitely want to pay that back. What we've learned as far as in some of the advice that you'll see on this slide, number one, it's important to define who you want to serve. That sounds like really obvious and really very simple, but it's not. You have to decide age group, population, level of care needed, all those sorts of things early on, and you have to stick with that description, that decision that you've made. You can't serve everybody. We're a private pay organization. We have a lot of families that come to us that can't afford our services, right? And it's hard. It's really hard to not be able to do that. But it's part of this is who we set out to serve. You need, secondly, to build your, how big a program do you want? And that affects your budget, right? And affects, again, back to that population that you want to serve. Some programs are really big, some programs are really small. You need to decide which one you want to be. Related to your budget is the decision whether you want to accept public dollars. We made the decision early on not to. We had our founder and our board had fear that accepting public dollars would affect our ability to serve who we wanted to serve and in the way that we wanted to serve them, on top of not having an interest in all of these sort of administrative oversight and the costs that go along with that. But that's a question you have to ask yourself. In states, some states it's really easy to tap into those public dollars, other states it's not easy. Number 4, again, building on my previous points, and they're not in a progressive order, they definitely are interdependent. Building a fundraising plan around how you're going to support the budget that you created. Are you going to be a nonprofit? Are you going to be a for-profit? Are you going to rely upon donations? Are you going to tap into those public dollars? All those questions are important to consider. 5 and 6 go hand in hand. I mentioned already about our minimum requirements for our DSPs. We require a bachelor's degree and 2 years of experience. That's a pretty high standard, at least compared to a lot of our colleague agencies in the St. Louis area. I can tell you it's a factor in our low turnover and our high retention. And also setting what you expect your residents, your clients to do. Again, that is part of defining your program and what your expectations of them, of the residents or the clients that are part of your program. Number 7, visit as many other programs as you can afford to, both money-wise and time-wise. I've probably visited, I bet, at least 25 programs, many of which are on the call today. Nothing beats coming to see a program in person. You're welcome to come visit us anytime. We think you learn so much from visiting, touring, meeting clients, meeting staff. That helps build your capacity, as well as a network of people that you can ask questions afterwards. Partnerships I've talked about, super important, both locally and around the country. Again, you can't do this by yourself. You just can't. This task of creating a program is incredibly difficult, incredibly challenging, incredibly rewarding. But you need friends, you need partners to help to get that done. And then lastly, please encourage you to be careful in your expectations around planning. It took us much longer to get open than we ever imagined. There are so many challenges, so many things, so many bumps along the way. So build in plenty of time for the planning part, because it's important, it's essential, and it takes a while to work out all the above items that I mentioned on that slide. There's my contact information. We have a vibrant website, vibrant present on social media, at least on Facebook and Instagram. I want to point out on our website, if you really want to learn more about sort of who we are and what it's like to live here, we have a great documentary on our website. It's a film developed by one of our board members who's a documentarian, Sarah Trulas. It's about a 9-minute video. It does a great job of sort of capturing the essence, the secret sauce, the magic that we have here at St. Louis Life. Again, that's available on our website.